Welcome everyone to the final round of the European Club Cup 2025. That is Boris Gelfand on your screen, one of the legends of the chess world. He's playing for the team of Rishon Lezion, and his opponent is Arjun Erigaisi, playing for the team of Alkaloid. This is a battle for the top spots at the European Club Cup. The winning team here can very well go back with the silver medal. Who knows? Maybe even try for a gold if some results go their way. But here you can see Arjun comes in, they have a smile on their face, shake hands, and Arjun also shakes hands with Rodstein there. The reason why Arjun is very good friends with Boris is, of course, in 2020 he learnt from Boris Gelfand, and that's the most beautiful part about this game is that Arjun has been a student of Gelfand before for a camp, and that has been very cool. Also, Boris has been always very kind and nice, and always motivated these youngsters, which has helped them a lot. So today it will be interesting to see how this game pans out. While Boris is one of the most inspiring figures in the world of chess, he's still playing strong at this age, well beyond 50, and fighting hard against the top guys. Arjun himself is quickly reaching up towards 2800 once again. A handshake and off we go. Arjun takes his time for the first move. What is his choice going to be? He opens with pawn to e4, and Boris without fail goes for the Sicilian. It's his favorite opening. He's played it all his life. Knight comes out to f3, knight c6. Now will Arjun take on Boris in the open Sicilian? No, he goes for the Rossolimo. That's very interesting because Boris has played this opening all his life, also against Vishy Anand at the World Championship in 2012. Pawn takes, b takes c6. Now white has given up the bishop, black has the doubled pawns. Arjun goes d3, knight e7, the knight could come to g6. And now sometimes you play your pawn to e5, but Arjun is careful. He first develops his knight, and only when black goes d6, now the idea is to play e5 and grab the center, and then you have the bishop pair. It would be very cool. So he goes e5 himself, and many players go d5 here. But look at Gelfand's move. Knight, pawn takes e5. I want you to look at this very closely, this structure. Knight takes e5, you might think, oh, look at this sick pawns, look at the c4 square, that is an outpost. But see how Boris plays, queen d5, this is his preparation, attacking the knight, attacking the pawn on g2, and Arjun comes back with the knight on f3, and Arjun is essentially saying to Boris, you won't get c4 easily. If he gets c4, he's very happy, his bishop would get activated here. But it's not so simple. f6 played to play e5, Boris still in his prep, and Arjun goes queen e2. Arjun also playing pretty quickly here, and e5 played. So opening up this bishop's path here, and b3, a very strong move because now c4 becomes impossible to play. Knight to g6, Boris is like, okay, doesn't matter, I'm coming here. g3 might be a good idea, but it does weaken the light squares a bit. So he goes knight c4, taking into control the f4 square, and now Boris goes to g4 with his bishop. Now clearly you don't want this kind of doubled pawns in this way. Maybe that's okay. h4 played. So Arjun is like, if you take here, I'm happy because then I'll go h5. h5 by Boris, stopping the h pawn. And queen e4, a very interesting move. You're attacking the knight here on g6. King goes to f7, defending it, and it would be a dream come true for Boris if Arjun takes here and gives him this nice structure. Arjun, of course, goes back with the queen, asking a question whether you want to trade. Boris could go back, but he trades. Queen takes queen, and now pawn takes on e4. And he takes on f3 as well. Very interesting move by Boris, because now he takes back, and I think the f4 square has been slightly weakened. But all in all, this looks like a very nice position for white, because I'm going to put my knight on c4 now. And Arjun does just that, and he's hoping that he can chop off this knight. Imagine you make a move like rook d8, that's just positionally catastrophe here. So that's why knight e6, keeping the knight. Boris believes in his position. He's coming to d4. Arjun goes bishop e3. He's even ready to chop off the knight here as well, or even long castle to get the rook in. So bishop e3, and now Boris completes his development, connects his rook. Bishop comes to e7. Remember, the h4 pawn is a weakness here. Arjun plays c3, taking away the d4 square from the black knight. And now rook to d8, taking the open file here. Arjun has to play this calmly. He comes up king e2. Still slightly better for sure white, but I think black is coming closer to equality. Trying to double the rooks on the d file. And Arjun goes rook d1. I think it makes sense to trade one pair of rooks so that the king on e2 feels a more comfortable there. He brings the other rook to d8, and Arjun now captures on d7. Rook takes d7, rook takes d7. And I don't think he'll trade the other rook. No, he doesn't. He goes knight a5. Arjun on the pawn hunt. He's going after this pawn on c6. Boris defends it with rook c7. Not a very happy move to make. And now rook takes the open file. Maybe eventually you can kick the knight out with king e8, bd8, rook c8, But Boris is like, I'm going to play on the other side. I'm creating my own passer on the h file. Rook goes to h1. Arjun wants to take on g5 and win the h5 pawn. h5 pawn, both a strength and a weakness. King comes up to g6, defending the h5 pawn. And now he goes king f1. Maybe he wants to slowly bring his king over to g2 and h3. And knight goes back to d8. Well, another idea here was definitely to take pawn takes pawn and try to attack the e5 pawn. But knight d8, Arjun goes rook g1. And knight to f7. Oh, he's defending the pawn here. Pawn to f4 played by Arjun. A powerful move by him. And Boris takes. Bishop takes. The rook is attacked. You could go back rook c8. But also could block with bishop d6. And he plays it. Bishop to d6. Arjun comes back, bishop e3. And Boris now goes knight e5. The position is getting interesting. If you take here, I can go knight to f3 and then take here, fg. So king e2, stopping this. And Boris goes g4, knight f3. This is a weak pawn here. Is black slowly taking over here? Maybe not. Maybe not. Bishop e7. And now bishop to f4 could be a very good move to chop off this knight. He plays it. But while you will get rid of this knight as it's pinned right now, rook c8 by Boris threatening knight f3 perhaps. The problem is after takes, the h4 pawn will become a weakness. So finally Arjun gets rid of the knight. It's very interesting, this position. Think about it. If Arjun manages to get like rook h1, he wastes, his rook is passive, but he's hoping for knight c4, knight e3 and knight f5. Once his knight sits there, it'll do the job. It'll defend, it'll attack. And that's what he's doing. Boris has two moves before he lands up in a very difficult position. King e6. And Arjun comes knight e3. a5, knight c4 again because a4 was coming. Rook f8 played. Can Arjun chop off this pawn? He plays a4. Well, it's now a race. Boris is not willing to defend the a pawn. He's trying to attack. He goes a4, but now bishop d8 is a good move. No, he goes rook f3. He's attacking the c3 pawn. Arjun, does he defend that? Well, there's no way to defend it so well. Everything is getting under pressure. Knight a5. It's now a fist fight. Knight takes a5. Rook takes c3. So he takes pawn to c4. He gives up another pawn. Knight takes c4. What a move. Rook takes. So he's attacking this b3 pawn. Rook a1. Arjun is like, take my b3 pawn. I'm queening here. Rook c2 check. King d3. And now take on f2. If you take that pawn, it can get really, really dangerous. Rook f2, a5, g3, a6, g2. Who's queening first? Oof, tough to say. Tough to say. a5 pushed. And Boris goes bishop c5. That's a good move. Trying to just take into control this diagonal. Also stopping the pawn here. Maybe he can just put the bishop on a7. So then his g pawn starts running. But instead he goes for a check. And now the thing is, if king e2, there's another check. So he's actually, now think about it, rook f2 check. If king e1, g3, already black is winning. So king e2, rook f2, I think Arjun has to go up, king d3. And you can't escape these checks. Check. If you try to go here, I check you, go up, already bishop d4. I mean, king b1, check. So it's not easy here for Arjun. I think a draw is the most logical result. He draws on the top board. And yeah, they're discussing to such an interesting strategic game. I think great play by Boris Gelfand against those weakened double C pawns. He showed that black always has resources. It's always amazing to see how these experienced players learn these things when in their play and then are able to execute them so well. In the end, Alkaloid beat Rishon Les Zion thanks to 3 wins by the team members Wei won, Injik won, and also Abhimanyu Puranik, which means they all get silver medals here. And yeah, a good performance by team Alkaloid. Would have loved to go back home with the gold, but silver it is for this time. And also kudos to Arjun Erigaisi for a stable performance.